I had someone phone me last night, and he just sobbed uncontrollably for for 5 minutes or so. I didn't know who he was, and his grandmother had died of cancer, and his mother had died, and his fiance had left him, and he had been suicidal, and that wasn't all that had happened to him. And he thanked me for the videos, and I've seen a lot of that. Serious business, this.
Mm-hmm.
So, you approach it at your peril, and with all defenses intact and carefully. But that, it doesn't matter. Life's a serious business, and you have a deep intrinsic value, and if you don't bring it to the surface, the world is much lessened as a consequence of your failure. And it might be crucial what you have in you. I had a friend who committed suicide, and he was a smart person and deeply troubled by questions of meaning. God only knows the full totality of the reasons. He didn't have a good relationship with his father. He had contempt for his father, who I knew and who I thought didn't deserve the depth of contempt that my friend had for him. But in any case, he didn't have a good relationship with his father, and so that's a problem if you're a man, because you turn into your father, so that's a problem. But he came to believe that human activity as such was destructive, and so any ambition that he had was malevolent in its essence. And so he tried to live a kind of nihilistic Buddhism, a self-negating Buddhism. He viewed himself as an agent of oppression. He wrote a short story once about living in northern Alberta, and he moved around a lot when he was a kid, and he went to a small town, High Prairie, I think it was, had a large indigenous population, so there were a lot of Indian kids. That's the vernacular of the story. And he got beat up one day by a group of Indian kids, and he wouldn't defend himself. I mean, he was 10 in the story, He wouldn't defend himself because he was a colonial oppressor. You think a 10-year-old can't think like that. It's like, yeah, they're smarter than you think. And so he didn't think he had any moral right to defend himself. And so that's just, and he was a sensitive person. And so, and it's a thorny ethical issue, isn't it? It's not that he was thrown sideways by something trivial, but he killed himself. Well, I guess he isn't causing the world any trouble now, except the trouble caused by his absence. I didn't really understand until I went on tour, I would say. I didn't understand how much people are starving for a word of encouragement. I had no idea that the desperate depth of that starvation, and to see why that is so affecting. I guess I saw it most particularly in the case of young men. Not limited to young men, but that's where I could see it most, grippingly in some sense. Because, masculinity is toxic, and human beings are a cancer on the face of the planet. We're an uncontrolled virus, and everything we do is destructive, and we're leading the entire cosmos to perdition. And those are deep doubts, and fair enough. I do believe in the environmental movement there's a call, an unrecognized call to individual responsibility, but it shouldn't be purchased at the cost of the denigration of the human being. That's not helpful. It's a form of resentment and hatred disguised as ethical striving, and it's deadly. And And so I'm doing what I can to encourage. I don't believe that human beings are a cancer on the face of the planet. And you orient yourself to the highest good to protect yourself and everything you love against that. And if you don't do that, well, then you're not doing that. Well, what else should you be doing if you're not doing that? What could you possibly be doing that would supersede that if you understand it? Well, that's the sort of thing that I'm trying to understand and to tell people about. It's overwhelming. It's absolutely overwhelming to grapple with such things. It's very dangerous psychologically in some sense too. It's so serious. You know, it's down there at the bottom, and it's very, very serious. It's overwhelming. You know, and I think some of that might have been what I've had some bad health, and I think some of it is for this reason. I've seen deep into the misery of very many people, thousands of people.